Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, and thank you for joining us. It is a terrific Thursday. Because we got a chance to celebrate our democracy, we got a chance to not only understand, all that transpires within our Legislative Assembly and to speak especially with the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. So please, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us. And in the studio, the Honourable D. Ezra Miller, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, is our guest. Again, sir, to you and all of the members of the Legislative Assembly, I trust that we are always respectful and show that it's not a question of pandering or trying to placate. It's not even a question of anything else other than the fact that we acknowledge that Cayman, unlike many places in the world, we still have relatively free and fair access to our elected parliamentarians. And I don't know about anybody else, but the fact that I understand that some of us have had, most of the fathers, uncles and grandfathers, and some even brothers who have fought to still fighting through enlisted service to defend this freedom to be able to go to the polls freely and fairly, to be able to speak openly and sometimes critically of a policy of the government, or maybe petition against something through protest in our public streets. We should never take that for granted. And I thank you all for allowing us to be able to at least have that discussion. Whether we like it or don't like what's happening, whether we vote for or against, it doesn't matter. That freedom is important in our democracy. So good afternoon, and publicly, Happy New Year to you.
Well, the same to you, and good afternoon to you, Mr. Sterling, and to the wider Glistening Cayman. It's good to be here. This is the first time since last year that I've been on your show.
Yeah.
Lots of things to talk about. We have the from things that I am involved in. I guess we have the two reports that was done by the Auditor General most recently. The findings on the Wayne Roberts new airport terminal and on the state of corruption in the country. So I suspect the people will want to talk about those. And, of course, we have the ongoing port referendum. And as usual, I want to encourage those who haven't signed it yet to please make sure you sign, because it's your democratic right. And we need to continue to test government policies in this way and use the facilities that are afforded us in the Constitution. And this is one of the most democratic ones. So we need to get out there and get signatures and get it signed.
If it's not inappropriate and if time allows, sorry to not spring it on you, but that's how it feels. I had a request from two members of the public. I do not believe it was in concert, but it happened in the same day within almost the same time frame. That makes you wonder. Not everything is a coincidence. Not that it's bad if it was in concert. They asked if I could, through your office in particular, and to you specifically, if possible, only because they believe that you are. How did the lady put it? You're man to get the job done. Some issue put it, and I can't repeat.
Be careful now, Mr. McLean. That's his acronym, the Action Man. So
well,
I don't want to detract from his. But no.
Yeah, and
that comes from the fact that when people come to see me, I try to deal with the issue right there and then. And I don't rely on the fact that, well, I made a phone call or I sent an email. I try to get the problem resolved.
Yes, sir. And we'll maybe come to it later on, but so that I don't forget it. She was asking specifically in relation to two things. I think I can see the relevance and how they're related. The idea that as the opposition and as the opposition leader, issues that go to cabinet, she did take some time to explain that she has understanding the confidentiality and the workings of the elected and so on. But things that go to cabinet and things that go to planning, by that I presume she meant the Central Planning Authority. I should never assume, but I presume that's what it was. That she would want to know whether, as an elected parliamentarian, as an opposition leader specifically, would you at any point get any sort of synopsis, heads up, even if it's after the fact, officially, to say, well, these are some of the things we looked at, whether they're for just your own edification or otherwise?
No, unfortunately, we don't. And I've always advocated that when it comes to major legislation that affects broad sectors of the country, I prefer the select committee process where we have hearings in the LA. Everybody is allowed to come in. They're broadcast. That people can get a good feeling of what we're trying to do. But this government does not believe in that. One of the things that I requested of the Premier the day we were sworn in, he as Premier and me as Leader of the Opposition, that I would like for he and I to sit down 1 hour a month, just have a conversation. It could be about riding bicycle, but at least, and where I could tell him things that the opposition would like to see addressed by the government, and he could tell me that some of the things that they are planning so that we can prepare. Because it's, in my view, it is better to offer advice during the process of doing the legislation than it is to regulate the opposition to simply be a critic of what the government has done. That is why I like the select committee, because the opposition is there, the government is there, the public can come in, the experts, the technocrats are all around the same table. And I guess a good example of what I'm talking about is the way we handle the proposed constitutional changes.
Yes, sir.
He and I, he and I met and we had a general discussion about what that he would like to do, and I agreed with what some of the things he was saying, and some of the things I said, no, I'm not going down that road. And we came to then I invited him to put his position in writing, which he did, and we met about what he wanted to do, and then we went to UK. All parties understanding what we were trying to achieve, so we were able to put forward a united front to the UK government, and I believe we were reasonably successful. In fact, I think we were very successful, and I have said publicly before that I was impressed by the way the Premier made his presentation, because one of the things that I told him, I'm not going to the UK to disagree with you. We have to settle our differences before we go. We did that. He also acquiesced to my request to sit down with his consultants and develop a strategy for the first meeting, which we did on the Thursday before we went to Friday. Again, and he was open and honest, we were open and honest, and we had a strategy. Because he had taken the liberty, which was correct in my view, to have sent what we were proposing to the UK, they were able, when we met on Friday, to simply say, well, we have some of the things we agree with, but this is our counter proposal and the things that we don't agree with. And there was some discussion, but then we were able then, as the Cayman delegation, to go back to the Cayman office in the UK and spend a couple of hours on Friday evening going through what they say they weren't going to agree, analysing what they were proposing as an alternative, and prepare a document to present for them Monday morning on which the negotiations would take place. And we spent, the time that was needed. We spent some time on Sunday as well. So when we went there, the negotiations were very frank, very cordial, very respectful, and I believe that we have got an agreement on, I think it's 11 of the 15 things that we asked for, some of which were very minor. And some of which were as a result of asking for one thing, it led to something else having to be changed. So none of it is large scale review of the Constitution. It's all around what we consider the overreach by the UK government on the open ownership, right? Open registry for ownership. And so I believe the UK is prepared to acquiesce to about 11 of the things out of the 15. 2, we understand that they're not going to do, right? And 2 is they're not likely to approve what we asked for, but they understand our concerns and they're trying to find a way to address our concerns while retaining their position as the administrative power. And I don't think you can ask for more than that, you know. So what we're waiting on now is for the UK to write the Premier laying out what it is, and then as we have said all along, and the Premier himself has said this, once we get that, then there's going to be a debate in the Legislative Assembly about the changes. And I don't know what the Premier is doing with his the members of his coalition, but certainly we in the opposition have agreed that it's an open vote. You know, if you don't agree, feel free to vote. You don't agree.
Not along party lines.
One item or 2 items, but there's no situation where we have, because I believe that all matters on Constitution should be one of conscience, which means I'm free to vote.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's the way to do it.
Well,
The concern of some people in the public that all changes must be subject to a referendum. That does not appear to be the position of the UK. We changed the piece for the judges without a referendum. They seem to feel free that this is, you know, these matters are at a level that once the Parliament demonstrates some unity and asking for it, you know, and a majority, then they would agree it without the referendum. I have I can't see the government wanting to do a referendum on these minor changes in the Constitution when they won't do one on the board, right? But I am not adverse to a referendum, and I certainly believe that in many respects I would expect that all members of the Legislative Assembly, all 19 members of the Legislature, or certainly the 18 members who sit on the floor, would involve their constituents in what they are going to say, because it's not a military secret what we went and asked for. I mean, the Premier and I both have, and he has made 3 if not 4 statements from the floor of the Assembly. So constituents are generally aware. And certainly the members of the Legislative Assembly should be au fait enough to go to their constituency, whether on a one-to-one or in some kind of collective format, and discuss the changes with them, so that what they represent during that debate in the Legislative Assembly is the views of their constituencies.
All right. Well, when we come back from the short break, honored to be able to continue in the company and be in the council of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
At KFC,
We believe you don't have to share a last name to be a family. Whether it's an office party, holiday fete, or family gathering, enjoy KFC's fresh hand-breaded finger-lickin' good chicken. The KFC Festive Feast includes 10 pieces of original recipe or spicy chicken, creamy mashed potatoes, tasty coleslaw, and warm biscuits. KFC's holiday catering menu includes buckets of hot wings, sweet chili wings, or chicken tenders. KFC, it's finger-lickin' good.
Did you know that the Department of Environmental Health operates a recycling program in the Cayman Islands? Recyclables such as number 1 and 2 plastics, tin and aluminum cans, cardboard, as well as glass and ceramic items are recycled on Grand Cayman by the DEH. Take these items to the recycling depots located at all Foster supermarkets, Kirk Market, and Hurley's Grand Harbor. Remember, keep the Cayman Islands clean, reduce, reuse, and recycle. For more information about recycling, please visit DEH website at www.deh.gov.ky.
Roger, Papa Victor, you are airborne at 3838, over.
Now, a direct result of the naval base is our aviation history.
Aviation history? 50 years? 100 years? The flying shellfish? What are we doing, Ray?
Dwayne, it's time for Siwa saying again. First one for 2019. You remember the topics we had on naval base, right? Well, this is a result of it. Aviation history.
Fly me to the moon. Let me swing among the stars.
Siwa Saying is a special feature of Talk Today with contributions from the National Museum, a language, history, and culture show on Radio Cayman 89.9 and 93.9 FM. Siwa Saying.
This Friday.
We had airports, we had planes, we had airboats, we had blimps. We even had blimps. Blimps, yeah. Crashes too. Crashes, yeah. We had crashes too.
Siwa Saying.
Brought to you by Cayman National Bank, proudly serving the Cayman Islands since 1974. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
Yeah, aviation history. And I don't mean that time that Dwayne jump off the house top with a sheet neither.
Atlantic Supply Limited is a sponsor of Radio Cayman's CI Retro Talk Today special Cayman Islands Cultural and Heritage Program presentations. Atlantic Supply Sales Department can offer advice, produce quotations, and supply new and used machinery for all types of construction, industrial, and infrastructure projects. Atlantic Supply Limited, 398 North Sound Road. Telephone 949-0333.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us. And again, thanks to the members of the Legislative Assembly for giving themselves to the media generally, but especially to Radio Cayman, because you want fair, objective, impartial, accessible coverage. Well, we are. Honorable Ezra Miller is our guest. Thanks so much, sir. As we were chatting just prior to the break relative to the recent discussions in the UK, as you shared together with the Honorable Premier, there was a joint sort of delegation.
What I was saying, if even at the port, right?
Yeah.
If we were doing this in a way where they were keeping us informed, but I mean the airport, we knocks, as Miss Anna would say, and up until now, we don't know what they're building up there. We see it because we go through it ourselves by traveling on our own initiative, but we have never received a presentation from government about what they're trying to do and what they're trying to achieve, what problem they're trying to solve.
Now, Mr. Miller, with respect to that, if we could ask the whole issue with the negotiations, you referenced 15 points, 1, 2, 3, or 4 that the UK, could we maybe speak to...
But basically, the 15 points all coalesced around 3 main ones, which was 125, which basically gives the UK government the unilateral authority to legislate for us through orders in council. And the alarm locally came was when the Commons intervened in that process, and they decided to attach amendments to legislation from the floor of the Commons, which had never happened before. So we wanted that removed, and the reason we wanted it removed because it's not in the Bermuda Constitution. I don't think it's in the Gibraltar Constitution, right? The other one that we were, and 3 or 4 of the 15 proposals was around that, because we proposed that it be taken out. If they say no, they won't take it out. Well, can we put some belts and braces around it? that'll only be used in certain ways, right? And there were 2 or 3, So then we had Section 80, and don't hold me to this because I don't have the Constitution in front of me, but I think Section 80 is where the governor could reject legislation passed by the Legislative Assembly, even if it was unanimous. So we wanted that removed, that authority removed. And the other one was Section 801, where he could write legislation, anywhere, his office or anywhere, and enact it without any reference to the Legislative Assembly, right? And basically, they've agreed that those 2, 8 and 801, will come out and with some conditions that, depending on certain conditions in the country, the governor would I don't have it before me, would have the right to address the Legislative Assembly on that matter.
So the governor could come down and say on behalf...
He could ask to be invited. He can't just come down.
Well, no, thank you for clarifying, because that's important.
Right. To see what happened with Trump and Pelosi now. Right. Anyway, so... And then a lot of the other things were surrounding those things and various scenarios therefrom. And the other one we were asking for was to change the name from Legislative Assembly to the Parliament, just to give it a modern kind of connotation and get it out of the way of that colonial language kind of thing of Legislative Assembly. You go travel as an MLA and it takes a master's in legislative affairs or something, right? The other one of the other ones was right now, the governor sits in cabinet. He has no veto power in cabinet. He doesn't control the agenda for cabinet as he used to do prior to the 2009 Constitution. So why is he the chairman? And whether we remove him as chairman or we remove him from cabinet, or we just leave him in cabinet but he's no longer the chairman, right? So my synopsis is this. All of the things that I agreed to support was about improving the governance of Cayman by Caymanians, by the duly elected representatives. Now, some people have said that that represents a power grab. It's not about grabbing power. It's about being able to effectively do your job that you're elected to do.
What about the... let me go back to what was our parlance in the past. The ex-official members used to be there. Now we've eventually changed, what was that, being the city secretary to chief secretary, is now deputy governor. The financial secretary used to be in cabinet, is no longer. So we have, I guess they still call ex-official members, the attorney general.
Well, right now the cabinet was made up with three people that can vote. The governor's chairman, the deputy governor, and the attorney general. Right. I don't. Well, normally, I don't know how to do it now. But when I was there many years ago, there was no such thing as a vote in parley because of the doctrine of collective responsibility. You had to concede, even if you just conceded by keeping your mouth shut. But if anybody voted against anything, it was deferred because everybody had to agree. Because when it goes down to the Legislative Assembly or go public, you're governed by collective responsibility, and you really can't ask me to be governed by collective responsibility, something that I have said I'm not going to support.
Right.
And then we have sitting in the Legislative Assembly two, the Attorney General and the Deputy Governor, who can't vote.
Okay.
You see?
If I may ask, and only some of us know, some of us maybe need to be reminded, some of us need to be, sort of informed. In Cabinet, as you understand it, the notion of collective responsibility, the elected ministers in Cabinet, there's a discussion and a paper comes up from one of the ministers to do something or to undo something, whatever it is. And there's a discussion presumably around that thing. If one minister says, I'm not quite sure I'm ready for that yet, either the thing gets deferred or by not saying anything, it's assumed silence is acquiescence. You've agreed to it because you didn't, and then you can fill in the blanks, right? You didn't say anything. That goes public. The ministers that maybe not necessarily in favor can say, well, boy, I didn't vote for it. That's how that issue of collective responsibility works, just so that we understand.
Yeah, because that's the whole doctrine of collective responsibility, because you can't have a government making decisions that a minister who wouldn't say something in Parliament can come out and openly disagree with the collective decision.
Right. Now, from that perspective, in relation to the changes that may come down the pipeline relative to our Constitution as we move forward, the non-elected members in Cabinet, being the Deputy Governor and the Attorney General for now. Is there any consideration that they will no longer be in cabinet going forward, and only the elected members, whether the governor is there or not?
Well, I don't think that was certainly not part of this discussion, and I don't know that we're prepared to make that step as yet.
Yes.
I would support a Minister of Justice instead of supported by an Attorney General and the whole legal framework there. I would also support that the Minister of Local Government had represented the civil service with all the protections. But you see, then again, we would be, to do that, you're interfering with Section 55 of the Constitution, which we decided before we went we were not prepared to do.
Right.
I think that kind of changes now is certainly, I think, would be subject to a referendum, you know. But I don't think that none of those things were under consideration in this matter.
Right. And as I listen to you, only because I think, many of us, we say we're students, and I for one.
But I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but I've been around it a little while, and I don't pretend to know all about it, but I try to read it at least. Yeah,
well, you are currently a sitting parliamentarian. You are the opposition leader. You were a former minister in cabinet, and hopefully I don't overstep. Hopefully I don't ask a question to which put you in the spot. But anybody sitting in the chair across from me that I can learn from.
No. That's the whole purpose of being here.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things that we have gotten away from in our society is being able to have discourse, right, and disagree without being hateful, right?
Yes, sir. Well, this is why I think if more of us would be willing to listen, and when we ask
you
a
notice
question,
in my New Year message, one of the things that I highlighted was that we, in particular, we as politicians, and me especially, we need to listen more.
Okay. Well, that's what I say. I'll give it 2 years.
Determined attempt to do that.
Yes, sir. Well, speaking to the Honourable Opposition Leader, and Mr. Miller, in that capacity, as we look at some of the things, these changes that may come, expectation for a timeline before the next constitution, before the next election by year end?
I would envisage, because they are what I consider, and I'm only speaking for Ezra here.
Yes, sir.
Minor changes. We're starting to celebrate our 60 years of our Constitution in June or July. It would be nice to have this done prior to that, but to say that the British government has a few irons in the fire over Brexit is probably an understatement of the century, or maybe of the existence of the world. But so I don't really believe that they're putting in a priority and writing a letter to still people down in the Cayman Islands with all the stuff that they got going on over Brexit. Yeah. But we're hoping that even if there was a change in the government, that the technocrats in the FCO would be able to present what we have achieved so far to the minister, and if it is a change in minister, and carry it forward.
Yes, sir. Now, this is not asked in any way to be in the front of them. There were discussions, comments publicly. I can't say discussions, that would not be the right word. We would hear that the term limit in the Constitution for the Premier is only 2 consecutive terms, and there are those who have shared, and I can't say that necessarily it's a bad consideration, but imposing a term limit maybe arbitrarily, maybe should be for the party, for the electorate to decide. Would such a consideration to remove the term limit of a Premier so that you can serve 2 terms, maybe it's 4 terms, maybe it's no terms at all. Was that, or is that under consideration?
No. And in the Premier, in fairness to him, on For the Record show in May, he and I both agreed that was not one of the matters that was going to be under consideration, although it had been floated by certain other sectors in the society. Right. Again, I think that they are those kind of changes. And I don't know that I can't speak for the Premier, but if we had not had overreach by the UK House of Commons, none of these were likely to have come up, because it was always you heard me many, many times that I was always scared of the nuclear option, which I referred to as 125, that the British government would use it, and that it would set us on the wrong path, because we have some charismatic politician who jumps up and starts to preach hate and get a following to take us into independence, and we're not ready. From 1972, I have been an advocate that Cayman must determine when we get independence and what form that independence take about, because, again, I don't think we should go back to the 60s to look for that kind of severance independence, right? I think that we have to recognize that, we've had a relationship that should not be completely severed, but we should have a kind of independence in that we run the local show, right? And when it comes to international affairs or something, if we have to pay them on a contract or whatever, that's a different, And we don't need to have ambassadors in every means in the world, because we got computers these days and something on our phone. But I believe that politicians have a responsibility to lead and to provide the opportunity for our citizens' development, but more importantly, our institutional development, to move the country forward. Right. And my fear is that we're not doing that. And I give you two good examples. When I became leader of opposition, remember, I started to ask questions: what does leader of opposition do? What is his responsibilities? What's the compensation package? What is expected? I don't think that nobody is a situation nobody could tell me, nobody would tell me, right? Because it up to that point, it seemed like the leader of opposition got what he could negotiate, whatever form of negotiation take, whether it was intimidation or whatever. And I don't like them kind of things. Same thing with the Public Accounts Committee. So one of my jobs over the period that I have been is trying to, one, raise the level of the office, respect and expectation in the society, right? Because if you look at government precedence level now, leader of opposition is 12, 13 or 14, so I'm way down there, right? When it should be, if you look around, it's usually 4th or 5th, and what I have endeavored to do, and I hope to have it finalized in the next couple of weeks, a manual, so that when I leave as leader of opposition, whoever comes in, right, I can sit down with him. I'd be willing to sit down for a meeting and say, this is the manual under which the leader of opposition should operate. These are your constitutional responsibilities. These are the laws that you make recommendations for people, the ones you give advice for, etc., etc. This is the compensation package. This is the kind of, and he has a document. He may want to change it, but at least I can show him how it was done, why it was done, and etc. And the same thing I want to do for the Public Accounts Committee is that when I leave as chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, I want to have a manual which is linked to a proper code of ethics, and all the procedures are laid out there, and the committee has taken my suggestion, and we have accepted the international rules developed by the Common Parliamentary Association of Public Accounts Committee, right? A lot of C's and P's, right? Which was adopted in London when it was there. And we're probably the only Public Accounts Committee in the Commonwealth, right, where all members have actually received the UK parliamentary training on how this thing should work, etc. And we've just had a visit from Mr. Jonathan King from the Isle of Man to assist in developing the administrative stuff here, local and stuff like that. And hopefully within the next couple of months, again, I'll have that manual available. So that, again, when a new public accounts is established, the clerk can say, this is the manual, this is how it was done before, you can change it or whatever. But at least there's a working document from which to do, and there's expectations.
It speaks to good governance. And with that, sir, respectfully, let's pause, take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue to learn, listen, laugh. Who knows? Share the love, Honourable Opposition Leader. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
What do rising geopolitical tensions mean for Cayman? How will the healthcare industry change with the emergence of a genetic revolution? With nationalism growing globally, magnified by Brexit and the U.S. Republican agenda, what are the implications for Cayman? The Cayman Economic Outlook Conference 2019 will answer these and other questions as it explores the theme, Dynamic New World, Braving the Turmoil. Be a part of the discussion on February 28th at the Kimpton Seafire Resort. Reserve your spot today and take advantage of the early bird rates. Sign up at rfceo.ky. rfceo.ky.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go.
Puritan, now using the most popular and eco-friendly cleaning solvents. Take advantage of our ongoing discounts on all men and women's apparel. Ask about other discounts available in store. 3 convenient locations to serve you: Savannah Countryside, Elgin Avenue, Georgetown, Eastern Avenue, Georgetown. Drive-through, rain or shine. Free pickup and delivery available. Call Puritan Cleaners at 949-7104. You feel good when you look good.
Whether you're planning your child's next birthday party or simply looking for a social night out, look no further than Kingpin Bowling at King Sports Center.
With a range of packages and specials for bowling parties, socials, and corporate team building, Kingpin Bowling offers what no one else can. The only bowling alley in Cayman. And it's indoor fun, which means no mosquitoes, AC, and don't forget about their bowling bar. Book your bowling lanes today. Call 946-BOWL. That's 946-2495. Email kingpinbowling@candw.ky. For more information, visit their website, www.kingsportscenter.com.
King Sports Center, providing your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
Thursday at 7 p.m., you can hear a repeat broadcast of CI Retro Talk Today's Heroes Day Celebrate Cayman special program presentation brought to you by Hell Service Station, Hell Road in West Bay. Family owned and operated for over 45 years. Now that calls for a celebration. Hell Service Station, where you're more than a customer, you're part of the family. Visit Hell Service Station for all of your car care products.
Hello, I'm Joseph Woods, the Acting Port Director. Our port facility is the hub of the Cayman Islands commerce and economic activity, handling $658 million in imported goods annually. From groceries to construction materials, all sectors of our economy depend on the port. But it is now 40 years old. Its infrastructure is degrading, and we feel the strain from insufficient space for both cargo and cruise operations. The time is now. A new expanded port facility is needed to allow both cargo and cruise to operate efficiently and to support our island's continued growth and development. Support the port, support our tourism, support Cayman's continued growth and development.
Super Jam Showdown.
For those of you that think that gospel music has gone too far.
Positive Monday. Population Tuesday. Latino Heat Wednesday to Thursday. Back the hands of time.
Supersonic.
Slide Day Friday Brack Party Block Top 10 Count to Female Friday.
Radio Cayman Super Jam Showdown. Weekdays 3 to 6.
Brought to you by City Wok, Cayman's newest Asian-style cuisine, the way it was meant to be.
Dine in, take out, or make your order online at citywok.ky.
Call 947-9965.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. In the studio, the Honorable Diaz Miller is our guest, and hopefully we don't impose on his time, but you're so gracious, so that we know that you have until at least 2 o'clock. So thank you for sharing with us. We have some callers online. The 2 o'clock news is an hour and 4 minutes away, but let's go today. Let's go to this caller before the headlines at 1. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Dwayne, and good afternoon to Ezra.
Good afternoon, sir.
Honorable Ezra from the outside.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, I am sitting here looking at today's paper. And I see where somebody decided they're going to complete that church in Bordentown.
Right.
For an estimated cost of $5 million.
Wow.
That I think it runs about $300 and something a square foot, because I don't know exactly what the size of the building from my estimate. But
that must include fixing up the land and landscaping and parking lot.
Yeah,
but still, that's a lot of money.
Ezra, let me tell you something. You remember when they were doing the schools in Cayman, the three government schools.
Right.
I protested the price of that because I don't know who comes up with these figures, but whoever that is, I hope it's not some architect, because they don't know what they're doing. I can tell you that.
Yep.
$50 million. Remember? For one high school.
Yep.
And Edward, when I tell you, I nearly puked when I saw it, drive it, and I checked the thing. It worked out to be something like $200 and odd a square foot, and neither residential, I don't care how beautiful the place is in Cayman, ever cost that kind of money.
Yep.
Now somebody's proposing to finish this thing for $5 million. I'm going to say this to everybody in this island can hear it. Cayman has become so corrupt. I am so sick of what's happening in this island, and nobody is accountable. When I see what they spent, another $60 million, because the high school up in Frank Sound cost $110 million. That was a cost of $60 million overrun. And this island is starved. Poor people are starving to death. And it's corruption and nothing but, I hope they're listening, nothing but corruption. This island, you've got to do something, because somebody has to be accountable.
Yep.
Nobody's accountable anymore. They go in, they call these shots and say, and then their friends, look at the airport. How much was that overrun now? I read something in the paper when they did the Auditor General report there.
Yep.
I forget how many millions that went over the door.
That was only till July last year, and now when it was $10 million then.
That's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, what are we doing? What is this thing? What kind of a clique there is in government that people are getting away with this stuff? You know what bothers me, Ezra? I did one of the most beautiful, and I'm not saying it because I did it, but I got these compliments from people, even the cruise line people. When I did that thing down in West Bay, when McKeever asked me to do the cruise ship landing, right?
Yep. Went
through planning, got everything approved and everything like that, and they owed me $26,000. And I went to these people, and they went on some of them was on the platform during the election, talking about they're going to do this and do it, to make sure that person was paid for that thing. And when I went back to ask them about the thing, they referred me to McKeever, said it's not my portfolio. These are the things that's happening in Cayman. The corruption is rampant. But you know what? You know what, gentlemen? Before the end of this year, I figured in about 2 to 3 months, we're going to have the worst recession you ever saw in this world. Believe me, and what you see Trump doing with this, fighting with this, with the Congress about this wall, he wants this thing to continue, because then what's going to happen, he's going to declare martial law, and he's going to be ruling the whole country by keeping people off the streets and then day and night, and he's going to do it, and that's the beginning, because this is a part of this new world order thing. Nobody talks about this, okay? They got this thing called the Illuminati. Oh, God help us, I pray each day for this country and for the world.
Yes, sir. Well, true prayer and petition, I think.
Well, I would want to see some analysis of the cost of that $5 million, because I think the public is entitled to do it, to see it. Now, it might include a lot of equipment inside the hall. I don't know, but certainly in terms of just finishing the building, right? It seems like an astronomical amount of money.
All right. Well, certainly we can look at that in terms of good governance and public accountability of public funds. Sir, respectfully, thank you for sharing with us, and hopefully your comments don't be misconstrued or certainly, you're maligned as a result of free speech. Well, let's pause and go to our headline news. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. We'll get a chance to, hear more, perhaps about the airport, perhaps about good governance and the like. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Headline. Radio Cayman's newsroom. Headline. These are the biggest stories right now.
There was a break-in at the Government Agriculture Building on Spot Bay Road on Cayman Brac Wednesday morning. An employee reporting to work discovered the crime just before 9 a.m. A small quantity of cash was taken and property was damaged. Police say the burglary would have occurred sometime after 6 p.m. on Tuesday and 9 a.m. on Wednesday. Anyone with any information, you're asked to call the Cayman Brac Police Station at 948-0331. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. 3 watercolor paintings attributed to the former German Nazi leader Adolf Hitler are being auctioned in Berlin. The separate works depict a mountain scene, a river, and a distant figure sat beneath a tree. The watercolors were created in the early 20th century, while Hitler, later guilty of some of the worst crimes in history, worked as a painter in Munich. The search for missing footballer Emiliano Sala and pilot David Ibbotson has been called off after rescuers failed to find their plane. Cardiff City's 28-year-old Argentine striker and Mr. Ibbotson were on the aircraft that disappeared from radar on Monday. After 3 days of scouring the English Channel, authorities made the decision to abandon the search. And elderly winter swimmers are braving below-freezing temperatures in Beijing, claiming the icy waters are the secret to good health. The eager swimmers wake up early to crack the ice on the frozen Haohai Lake in the center of the city and carve up a pool area. They say the cold temperatures help to stimulate circulation and keep certain illnesses at bay. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Exercise extreme caution around the CUC's poles and power lines, especially when extracting iguanas from trees or branches that are in close proximity to poles and power lines. Participants should keep all objects such as poles, sticks, or hooks away from any CUC equipment to avoid any electrical contact. For further information, please contact our customer service team at 949-5200 or via email at service@cuc.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. 949-8037 is our non-toll-free call, or you can, with the compliments of flow, call us at 1-800-534-8255. And if you want, you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Honorable Diaz Miller, as the leader of the opposition, is our guest. And thanks again, sir. The idea of good governance. You talked earlier about all, of the members of the Public Accounts Committee, and Cayman, the only country within the Commonwealth. And I don't remember what the last count is, but there's more than one country in the Commonwealth.
About 70.
And there are...
170.
I think it was 170. A few well. Mm-hmm. And very respectable parliamentarians amongst them. So getting that training is important. Our anti-corruption legislation, the different issues.
Well, we're holding a public hearing on the Auditor General's report on the fighting corruption in the Cayman Islands, and basically an assessment of a state of the agencies and what kind of anti-corruption laws and stuff, if they're adequate, we have in place and stuff like that. And we hope there's going to be a public hearing on that on the 30th of January, and we have invited the chairman of the various boards to tell us and answer questions. Because one of the things that we tend to do is we pass legislation and we take all the credit for passing legislation, but there is no return to that legislation 4 or 5 years later where we do a performance evaluation. Did we fix the problem with this legislation or not? So it's kind of like, and while I think it is fair to say that we have many of the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle which could provide necessary anti-corruption activity. None of them seems to be adequately resourced or is in a position where they can really do their job. And that gives us a lot of concern. And probably what is missing now is because we don't have any one agency that is responsible for the implementation of that anti-corruption legislation and its procedures, or provides any monitoring as to the results of that thing. Maybe what we need, in addition to what we already have, is one of these integrity commissions, which provides that kind of monitoring and analysis and makes recommendations and can put in place the various methods, because they are international standards that many agencies have.
Can I perhaps share something, not just with you, but with the listening public, both for insight and guidance, and also with respect to the individuals, maybe help us to engender a sense of, as you shared, good governance and the like within our communities. I got taken to task again, being accused of being a journalist and the like, and I've said to the individual, I wholly, fully, completely respect the profession of journalism. I do not want to be called a journalist because I don't have that training. I like to cook, but I'm not a chef. And that's simply because I think the media, the profession of a journalist is indeed the fourth estate, is that check and balance on society. Should be objective, should be independent. And honoured to be able to, at the very least, have some deference, show some level of respect to the profession and behave with some level of decorum. But a journalist, I'm not. The individual said, when we look at the behaviors of some U.S. senators, they were drawing an example with respect to their president. One sort of review of their historical comments would show that they were opposed or they were anti. Now they're singing from the same hymnal, as it were. They pointed to a few editorials in one of our dailies that would talk about good governance, cost overruns relative to government projects. The examples of the schools in the past were the ones that they showed me. Here is, there's an editorial from this era. Here is a comment from a listener and a reader and the like. Rightfully saying, how can you do this? Now with the airport, it's almost defending the cost overrun and had asked me the question.
The justification thereof. I would go even further.
Okay. And I had said to the individual as well, it's not me, take it up, but I'm the beaten stick, as it were, then, so I took the brunt of it. But I understand their concerns. A position can't be changed to suit the scenario. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. So with that now, when we're seeing, as the Auditor General issues a report, we see the response from the government, is this, what does that mean for us?
Well, first of all, in my view, under the Public Authorities Law, the response should have come from the board, not the minister.
Okay, that's understand. Okay.
And I was really disappointed in the response from the ministry. I don't know whether the minister was involved or not, because they seem to find reasons to justify the overrun rather than accepting the criticisms as they were, in that the reason they had to make the corrections, which cost so much money, is because they didn't design the place properly in the first place. Right?
Okay.
I mean, that's the basic. The basic problem is they started the thing without complete drawings because they didn't have planning permission to start with, right? So, and instead of, when you read in the report that the electrical plans had to go to the electrical department, go with some 12 to 14 times, I believe. Don't hold me to the exact figure, but more than enough.
I like how you say it.
why did we get rid of the consultant then? You know, why have we spent millions adjusting what the consultant tells us is the right thing to do, right? But we continue to manage them, right, as opposed to terminating the relationship and let the chips fall. You know, terminate it for cause, right? And the other preposterous defense by both the CEO and the ministry is that what you're all talking about, this is money we raised ourselves. This is not, no money had to be borrowed or no money came from central government. The fact that the airport collect the fee does not mean that it's not public funds, right? And we have a responsibility, particularly the Public Accounts Committee, to find out why this overrun took place. Is that the reason why the plans had to be adjusted was because the design was not done properly in the first place? Because if that's the case, then, you know, somebody should get fired.
Mr. Minister, you were... I say Mr. Minister. Wow. Sorry. Sorry.
Not yet.
No. No, you really want to get me in trouble. Freudian slip, I don't know. I was thinking minister and ministry, and only because trying to understand. You said just then, and I hope I heard you correctly, you don't know whether the response came from the minister was involved. Minister and ministry.
Well, I mean, when I say that, the minister, any ministry that Ezra is the minister of, I take full responsibility and I exercise full authority over anything that they do.
Right. So, understanding that is my understanding of it, and what I would imagine. I just want to, from your perspective, you just clarified. I was going to ask. Well, imagine that if a ministry publishes something, the minister is aware and or has said, okay, this is what goes out. Would that be the
I would think that's the norm.
Okay.
Otherwise, you know.
Okay. And asking that then, you referenced the Public Accounts Committee, with respect from what we understand. But that review is after the fact.
But no, this one is during the fact.
Okay. So
which is where we want to get the Public Accounts Committee doing, you see. All right. Because it's more effective that way.
Well,
if we can intervene in the process, make the necessary corrections to save money, that has to be better than reviewing it 6 months later and just identifying what money was wasted.
Well, what is
but
that?
you can't recoup it after that. And this is the way auditor generals and public accounts are going worldwide.
Right.
You know.
Because, I mean, what is that saying? You know, no sense closing the stable door after the horse is bolted, right?
Exactly.
Let us ask the question, and again, only from a limited understanding of accounting. If the Auditor General's report is as at this date, historical date, last year, January, last year, July, whatever, and we're now a year or two after the fact, that information, like a balance sheet, this is the position of the company as at this date. Much transpires in the intervening period, you know.
Well, I mean, and you know, again, I try to prepare for these eventualities. And after the report came out in August under confidential cover, for reasons beyond my control, I decided to FOI some information. Right? So I sent FOIs into the airport authority. And again, I didn't do it under Mickey Mouse or anything. I done it under D. Ezra Miller. Please email your answers to Ezra@Kandawaki. I wasn't hiding from it. They sent me some information. Now, that information does not support, in several instances, what they claim in here. Right? And what they claim in their press release. Right? So it's going to be a very interesting public hearing because, you know, I'm in a position now to quote the minutes when I'm asking questions.
You have the...
Because I got them.
Right. We asked or shared earlier a comment or a concern, query, or however you want to, of an individual who said...
What I have to do now is go back now and get from... I only got to July, so I go back now and get July to December.
Right. The individual who was saying, well, as the leader of the opposition, duly elected in a position recognized and provided for within our constitution, does the opposition leader get, information, maybe the agenda of what's going before planning, maybe minutes, something from the cabinet, in that lake? And I thought, I think I know the answer, but why not ask, since I was asked to ask?
We don't get anything like that. I mean, you've heard me say publicly that we have invited, we have asked the minister, we have begged the minister, we have pleaded with the minister, give us a tour of the airport. Tell us what you're doing. Let us see the plans. Never happened. Same thing with the port. Right? Tell us what you're doing. Tell us why you're doing it. Let us see the plans.
But does that then... I'm not...
So what they force us to do then, you see, is to be critical after the fact, which is in many respects meaningless. But they can simply say, well, you want to complain it. But they didn't give us any opportunity to be part of the process.
It makes it more politicized in a sense?
Yes.
Okay. Because it's becoming an expectation, I believe, by some members of the public that the talk show hosts and perhaps media in general, well, you should know this. You should be able to, you go ahead and do that. And then if you ask a question, it's happened to me, and as long as I don't think I'm being improper, I won't shy away from it. But that's me, the person. It's not my nature to be intrusive, to be offensive. That's certainly hold my ground.
The other thing you get is that you get, I think it was when the government came to get the additional 7.5 million equity in Cayman.
Yes, sir.
I asked a lot of questions, and I got people, calling me up and asking me, why am I attacking the person? I'm not attacking nobody. I'm simply asking questions, and my supplementary questions is based on the answer. But again, I don't ask questions in a vacuum, right? I have usually done, and everybody should know that by now, right? I have done sufficient research to put myself in a position to know if you're telling me a lie or not.
Makes sense.
Mr. Benson, who was one of my mentor, and I'm my best friend, used to always tell me, my son, don't ask a question you already know the answer to. Right? So sometimes I can't go that far, but I mean, and sometimes you get information rather per chance. And I'll give you a good example. New Year's Eve, my friend Eddington Powell and myself and David Guilfoyle was down at Ropa's Cigar Bar having a New Year's drinking a stoja for and this guy walked in and he was looking in the cupboard for cigars and whatnot. And we had that 2 extra cigars on the table. So he had to ask Eddington to move his chair. And we said to him, well, are you trying to find a cigar? Well, here, how good to try this? This is a pretty good Cuban cigar. Of course, that happened to be the best cigar done in Cuba in the last 25 years of the week. So we struck up a conversation. So he sat down and joined us. And it turned out to be a very interesting conversation. He was a pilot with American Airlines. He was their union rep. Right? So... I asked him, what do you fly? Well, I fly at 737, 700, 800s, occasionally the MAX. And one of us, I think it might have been Mr. Guilfoyle, said, well, we're getting 800 MAX for Cayman Airways. And the man kind of sat bolt upright in his chair. Why would you be buying that aircraft? Right? So, of course, my curiosity now. I said, well, why would you have that kind of reaction? So he said, well, don't misunderstand me. It's a beautiful aircraft for the pilots. I enjoy flying it. But he says, a miserable aircraft for passengers. Have you ever sat in the back of one? He said, that's where the carriers all. He's got to pack them in. And then we started talking about other things, and he was relating the union's involvement with the manufacturer over the accident in Malaysia. Up there, Sumatra. And he was saying that week before that, the union had a meeting with Boeing executives and they hadn't showed up. And that the most of the pilots were rather perturbed by the way Boeing had handled that problem, And then I said to him, we're also going to, I understand we're starting a new route for this aircraft into Denver. And he said, you're going to need big engines and the ones that cause the problems. And I said, well, why? He said, well, you're right at the fringe of where, in terms of how far you can fly this plane. And alternate for Denver is not close, right?
Yeah.
And you're taking off at high altitude, and if you want to talk about tankering fuel to Cayman because you can get it cheap, you're going to need a big engine to get it off the ground, right? And it was, again, it was a per-chance conversation, but I learned a lot, right? So that's just how you, but you know,
yeah, man.
Some things you get gifted.
Yeah, something that I've been trying to understand, and unfortunately, sometimes the way you say something is the time you ask it, it's the person to whom you ask it, and the like. Some of us, with the greatest respect, no matter how big we are, how brash, brazen, how almost a bully we are, thin skin. You can't have a meaningful dialogue. I think it's come down that the bigger the body, the more the brawn, the less the brain. But that could be wrong, right? I, like probably most people, love Cayman Airways. We believe that it's a symbol of many things, but we also believe that it has to have safety as a priority. Questions have been asked of me, and I think is partly to sort of inspire certain dialogue. The purchase of Cayman Airways, the expansion of routes, the business decisions as they were. Are they, to your knowledge, business decisions, politically driven, the acquisition of plane?
One of the questions that I asked the CEO at the time they were getting this was, did you do a business case? Yes, we did a business case. Well, what other kind of planes did you consider? But we didn't consider anything but Boeing because we like Boeing, right? Well, that's not a genuine business case, right? Because there are people here who tell me that there are different planes that would be much better for us, and the fact that Cayman Airways is not filling its flights to Miami now, and in the middle of the season they're cutting back from 3 to 2 has to tell you something. And so that was the business case,
Right.
So you wonder, if you hire a consultant, right? I mean, I do consulting for people. Consultant 101 is, I better be sure I find out what you want me to tell you. And then find out a way to justify how I can tell you that, right? Because otherwise there's no consultation too, right?
I like a candidate, sir.
No, but I mean, listen, it's a fact.
Yeah.
So we don't know. And my concern is that the reason I ask questions about Cayman Airways and the management thereof is not because I dislike Cayman Airways or I don't want to see Cayman Airways succeed or I dislike the people who are managing it. My concern is that Cayman Airways must remain sustainable, right? And my big fear with the 800 MAX is I lived this in the 90s. Do you remember? We went from 727s, which were basically functional, right, and doing the job, to brand new 737 400s. And what it was, within 2 years they were gone, right?
Couldn't afford them, was it?
And that's my concern with this, because I don't know that,
well,
but they hide behind commercial sensitivity and refuse to answer the question.
So that's the word.
And my reluctance to ask these questions in camera is because somebody can come out and leak it, and then I can get the blame.
Right. We, under an administration or 2 or 3 ago, I gather we purchased older aircraft that were coming to the end of their lease and life expectancy. That's a public fact, right? There are people in this country who are very knowledgeable about aviation and the like. As much as I say I love Cayman Airways, they probably love it even more. Not because they work there, not because they have family, but but there is a concern that financial viability and the like.
But I mean, and again, I didn't make these figures up.
Yeah.
These are figures that they present me, and don't hold me to absolutely because you don't get no. But they presented accounts to us in some form. And in the document that justified the $7.5 million additional capital expenditure, equity expenditure in the company, which indicated that at the beginning of 2018 there were $16 million in debt. That's not the loans. Now this is operational debt. After we put in $12 million during the year plus $22+ million subsidy, there was still going to be $16 million in debt, right? at the end of 2018, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they presented that their revenue was down, the projection for revenue was down. My question was, in this economic scenario, why are you going to bigger planes? And aviation experts tell me that the so-called benefit of flying these planes and the fuel savings and all that is not relevant, and they will get none on most of Cayman Airways routes because they only get that effect a long time after you're flying, I think, the aircraft 2.5 hours or more.
Yeah.
So, and my position is simple. Listen, if you have done honest, fair, equitable justice to your business staff and plan, there's no reason to hide it. You should be proud of it. Now, if you have not done all of those things, right, and somebody can pick it apart and say, well, why didn't you consider, even if you wanted to stay with Boeing, why didn't we consider the 737, 600 or 700s? Why are you going from 3 all the way to 8? There are many mutations in between that you could probably get cheaper. Now, their argument might be, well, because these planes are new, you got less maintenance, etc., etc. But all of that is because the airline is, you don't file the fitting down to make it fit. You put a new one in.
Right. With that,
the replacement mentality.
Yeah, I've heard people ask the question, and maybe I should, but I didn't. Do we know what these planes will cost us? I mean, some people say it was going to cost us a dime. Some people say, they're $100 million each.
They refuse to tell us. They refuse to tell me. I don't know.
Okay, all right. Fair enough. I mean,
I hear all kinds of rumors. I mean, I don't, unless you prove it to me, I don't accept your protestations that this is the best deal that anybody in the world has ever negotiated for 737, 800 Maxes. Because I really don't, my reaction would be that American Airlines or Southwest Airlines likely to have more negotiation power, right, and better negotiations than Cayman Airways. I mean, that may be stupid, but that sounds kind of logical to me.
It's nothing more than economies of scale.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, when we come back from the break, we'll continue our discussion. Mr. Miller will join us until 2 o'clock. I think if we gave him some bread and water, he might have kept him longer, but, we have to work on that.
Some Cayman blackfish tea.
Ooh. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
One TradeX knows there's more than one way to invest. One TradeX is the Cayman Islands' only fully licensed online broker-dealer, offering discount trading services to individual investors and traders, hedge fund managers, and family offices. One TradeX has the most competitive online trading prices of any offshore broker worldwide, with no custody or management fees, free demonstration accounts, and no charge to open an account with a $5,000 minimum deposit. Trade stocks, options, futures, bonds, and Forex. Learn more and open your free demo account today at OneTradeX.com. OneTradeX, the Cayman Islands' #1 choice for online brokerage. OneTradeX is licensed to conduct securities investment business by the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority.
Stay tuned.
Don't forget to tune in Monday through Friday for Radio Cayman's local evening sports report during the 6 p.m. news hour.
Taking a look at Radio Cayman's local sports, I'm Dion Anglin.
It is proudly brought to you by King Sports Center, providing your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
National Heroes Day is a time to celebrate our history, heritage, and be inspired for the future.
This year, we are honoring the people who pioneered the establishment of our first national symbol, the coat of arms, celebrating our journey to modern-day Cayman, and recognizing organizations who served our community for over 50 years.
The ceremony begins at 9 a.m. on National Heroes Day, Monday, January 28th, at Hero Square in Georgetown, with live entertainment and refreshments following the celebrations.
For more information, contact National Events at gov.ky or call 244-3612.
This National Heroes Day, Monday, January 28th.
Show your national pride
and celebrate Cayman
as we pay tribute to our
national
KFC,
heroes. We believe you don't have to share a last name to be a family. Whether it's an office party, holiday fete, or family gathering, enjoy KFC's fresh hand-breaded finger-licking good chicken. The KFC Festive Feast includes 10 pieces of original recipe or spicy chicken, creamy mashed potatoes, tasty coleslaw, and warm biscuits. KFC's holiday catering menu includes buckets of hot wings, sweet chili wings, or chicken tenders. KFC, it's finger licking good.
Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Radio Cayman Super Jam Show, the #1 drive time entertainment show on your radio featuring Will Sinatra.
Enjoy a mix of pop, hip-hop, reggae, dancehall, Latin, soca, urban gospel, old school.
The Super Jam Show is fueled by the proud sponsorship of insurance agent Michael Webster from Cayman Insurance Center.
Don't take chances with your family's future.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you for joining us, and I trust that you're. I say this respectfully, and Mr. Miller, both as the leader of the opposition, but both as, if you allow me to say, even though you look younger than some, you remind us, you're not a teenager, right? So I'm mindful.
I'll be 6 or 7 and do it.
Yeah. My mom would probably tell me so.
I don't take any medication for anything, and I just had a complete physical, and everything is okay.
Amen.
Except I'm 100 pounds overweight, but I know what cause that is. Just eat too much, but
All right. Well, I say this, and I trust that people will take it on board. If we're truly a Christian nation, we pray, without ceasing for those in position of authority, that they'll be seeking wise counsel. Ms. Susan, you say you have a call online? Is this a lunch order? Let's go to the phone. Say good afternoon, welcome. You want to talk today?
Hello, good afternoon, Sterling. Good afternoon, Mr. Miller.
Afternoon, my friend, sir. How are you?
I'm good, man. I just tuned in. I was listening to right before you went to the break.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Hello. One thing I'd like to say, because obviously I think that the importance of having, like Mr. Miller said, if the government don't tell them what's going on, then it leaves a lot of room for speculation and questions, such as what he asked. But I know on some of the stuff that I had read and found out, and especially when it comes to these new 800 maps. Now, granted, with the Boeing 800 maps has their own issues from a technical standpoint that we've seen, on worldwide global media. But I think, in all fairness to the whole situation, is that, far as I know, they're not purchasing those planes; they're leasing them. And one of the reasons why they were leasing the 800 maps is because of the deal in particular, where there was a company that subleases planes from Boeing every year. Like, don't hold me to these numbers, I'm speaking hypothetically. Somewhere in the tune of 80 to 100 planes, this one company leases, and then they subleases out to different airlines, such as Cayman Airways and other places. Now, Cayman being a very small jurisdiction that requires a small fleet of planes, such as that we have 4 or 5. What had happened is that the company, the initial big company, and this is just my understanding, at least had committed to 100 planes, and then they had a few contracts that weren't filled, so they had additional planes that they were able to help small countries like us, and they were willing to offer a better deal if we took forward planes and we leased it from them, and they would be responsible for the maintenance and whatnot, and to the fact whether or not they fly long distance. One of the reasons for the 800 maps as well was so that we can go longer distances. And as far as I read a couple months ago, Cayman Airways is now getting ready to add flights to Chicago and I think it's Colorado or one of those places, which is longer than 2-hour flights. So it would justify having a plane that has that distance and that capability. But again, I'm not here trying to say anything in regard. I'm just telling you from what I know and what I read is that, one, yes, if we were purchasing 4 brand new 800 maps, I would have to assume that it would be in the $300 to $400 million worth of planes, and then we'd be solely responsible for their airplanes, for maintenance and whatnot. But from what I understood of the whole package deal, and I really wish that they would do a better job of getting information out to the public, so we can not have these conversations, and we can be at some level of ease and confidence that it's a good deal for the airline. Because when I first initially heard about the deal a few years ago, one of the things that stuck out most to me that contended with was that the money that we spend in maintaining the current 737s now is more than what the lease would be for these brand new planes. So in my eyes, based on the numbers and that we were getting a lease deal as opposed to a purchase deal, I thought that made better sense from a number standpoint. Now, again, they haven't released anything to support any of that. That's just what I have gathered from people who are involved with the Cayman Airways committees and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I think that it's their job to inform the public as to what's going on. Because yes, Mr. Miller is right. It's Cayman Airways, and we're responsible for these planes either way, whether we lease them or purchase them. At the end of the day, it's still our responsibility. So, it's like the port. We can't get any information, and then when the people go out to engage in certain activities to try to get information, they call us troublemakers.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But I just thought I would share that, Mr. Miller, because
that's appreciated.
Yeah. And why I say that is because at the end of the day, I like to give credit is due, mm-hmm. and I don't like to be always in the opposition and criticizing. But one thing I can tell you confidently is that, as far as I know, is that they're being leased, and there were special reasons and conditions why that deal was accepted by the Cayman Airways board, simply because it was a unique deal that probably only comes around once in a lifetime. So I think the board saw the value in it, and not having to come up with $300 to $400 million to purchase brand new planes, but yet our airline have an opportunity to have possession of brand new planes in order to fly long distances and have more adequate service and reliable service at that. Because we've seen in the past where these old planes when one of them break down on that route, you delay for 10 hours because those planes are so heavily used. But again, I just thought I would share that, and I'll listen in, and hopefully, somebody from Cayman Airways who have the real information can call in and plug in and satisfy the public. I think that's important.
Right. Hey, thanks very much for sharing, man. I think the caller makes a point that
it's that's what we were talking about, lack of information.
Yeah, and something that he shared that I think is most unfortunate. Maybe it isn't something that we as a media, so to speak, we as a populace demand. But if you're sharing, sir, that as an elected member with a constitutionally recognized position is challenged to get information formally, officially, what does that say to good governance and openness, accountability, transparency, democracy? Those things we champion.
Well, what it says is that the government is far too content to operate behind closed doors in this secret environment. But then they come down to the LA and they get offended if you don't say yes.
But then,
and that's just not my nature. What was Ronald Reagan that said, trust but verify? All I'm saying is, give me the information. Don't tell me what the decision is. Give me the information you have and let me make my own decision.
You're a big boy, you're smart enough to pick it up yourself. But then, is that the challenge in our society, that we grew our people with this?
And, the people right now, not having to compare it though.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go back to 2000, there's been no real transparency, right? You would have to actually go back to the 88 and 92 government to find the kind of transparency in public debate that I advocate. Because I remember most of us did long-term planning. We had the Mr. Linford did the Master Ground Transportation Plan. Mr. Norman did a proper tourism plan. I did the health plan, the AIDS plan, the drug plan, the waste management plan. We all had the long-term planning, and these were all things that were taken in every forum we could find to have public discussion, And then I was sharing with somebody on Saturday. And sometimes when you go out to have these meetings, things happen, right, that lead to a sensible decision being made in government. And I'll give you an example again. I went to the Cayman Brac to have a meeting to discuss the National AIDS Plan, right, and the changes that I wanted to make to the law, which would allow medical abortions to save the life of a mother. Because at that point in time, a doctor could not abort a baby or in a pregnancy to save the mother's life. The mother had to die, or they'd be charged with murder. And do you imagine going into that conservative, very religious society? I tell people jokingly that I didn't know they had that many Bibles in Cayman Brack, is what I saw on them 2 front benches that night, right? But we had an open discussion, an open exchange. And after it was all over, one of the people who got up and challenged me, he came up and introduced himself, and we struck up a conversation, and we got talking. He says, they had just formed the Cayman Brack, I can't remember, it was a Seafarers or Seamen's Association. So he wanted to if I would consider trying to assist them with getting reduced costs of free health care. And we had an open discussion about it, and I came back and went to Mr. Benson and others, and we approved it. So much so that Caymanians were joining the Cayman Brack Association in order to get access to health care, right? But here I went there for complete different purposes, right? Seamen were not on my mind at all, right? At least
in that capacity, yeah.
But because of the relationship in the frankness with which I engaged this person, and the honesty, and earned the personal respect, he felt comfortable in coming to me and asking and having that discussion. So there are many good things that can happen out of public discourse on projects. And I tell everybody, my grandmother used to tell me that 2 hails better than 1 even cow hails, you get more meat. Right? So I mean, it was routine for me. One of the advices that Mr. Benson gave me once was, you're giving these people too much information to criticize you with. But that's participatory democracy is my political mantra. That's and there's far too little of that now, and too many major policies in government are being done by the politicians, assisted by the technocrats within house, and there's not enough public participation and public discourse on it.
Mr. Mo, if we could, I'll put on the table now. Comment came in offline, was asking about the enactment of the standards in public life, and was questioning the whole similar practice in recent times where politicians will not say anything, let it fall for the civil service, the chief officer and the like.
It's worse than that. The civil service can't do nothing.
Okay.
One of the things that I found when I came back into government, when I was in government a long time ago, in a time that the governor signed what we used to call the vellum copy, the law was in effect, which was usually done within days or certainly no more than weeks of us passing legislation in the parliament. I came in back in 2009 and I found these kinds of clauses, which is now very common in legislation. And in this one I'm talking about the Public Authorities Law 2017. And Clause 1 says, this law may be cited as the Public Authorities Law 2017. Subsection 2, the law shall come into force on such date as may be appointed by order made by the Cabinet, and different times may be appointed for different provisions and relation in different matters. So what this allows the government, the politicians, not the civil service, to do is to enact legislation, get all the accolades, as we have done with the public standards and public life law, of we're doing the right thing for corruption, to stop corruption, but do nothing. Because I have the law here. Let me read you what the standards and public life law says.
Yes, sir. And we are indeed speaking to the opposition leader.
It has the same clause. Clause 1. This law may be cited as the standards in public life. And this is the amendment because the original law was passed in 2014, remember? But it has the same clause in it. Right? And it says exactly the same thing. Right? This law shall come into force on such date as may be appointed by order made by the Cabinet, and different dates may be appointed for different provisions of this law in relation to different matters. So what has not happened with the standards in public life law is that the Cabinet has not issued that notice to commence the law, right? And they, I might have a commencement notice here. Here's another good one: procurement law, commencement order 2018, because it has the same clause in it. And the commencement law says Clause 1. This order may be cited as the Procurement Law 2016 Commencement Order 2018. The provisions of the Procurement Law 2016 shall come into force on the first day of May 2018. So even this law was a 2-year hiatus, right? From when it was passed, right, to when it was commenced. So the problem with the Standards in Public Life Law is that the government has not issued the commencement notice of the law. And remember, we passed this law originally in March 2014. Then we came back in June 2016 and amended many sections of the law based, according to the government, on board members objecting to unveiling what their interests were. And if we wanted these very bright people to sit on boards, we had to change the law. But we changed the law, and now the government is still saying that the people who wanted the law changed still don't want the law come into effect because they don't want to tell us what they own. And basically the requirements of the amended law are substantially less than was in the original law. And my position is a simple one. If you don't want to declare what the law says, then just don't take the appointment to the board or resign from the board. You know, because there's a whole cadre of Caymanians out there that would be willing to serve on these boards and are quite capable. Because when you look around at the makeup of boards, you know, it's almost the same 12 people, depending on who's in government, that sits on these boards, right? And I have said for many years that we need to change the way we appoint people to boards. And what I would like to see the government does is we need a board now for the standards, but we have a Standards and Public Health Commission. Put it on the paper. This is what we're looking for. These are the kind of duties that you would have. This is the kind of time that we envisage how to spend it. This is the compensation.
See if you're interested.
And I managed to convince the deputy governor to do it on the one where part you reduce the sentences. Can't remember the exact name of it now. But anyway, where you can get out of jail on license, right?
Conditional release.
Conditional release. Yeah. And they were shocked. One, at the number of people who were interested and the caliber of the people who was interested. We got to get away from allowing politicians to appoint people to these boards for political reasons, because there's really no other reason to do it. You know?
All right. Well, take our final break in this segment with the Honourable Opposition Leader. When we come back, we'll conclude our discussion, and then we have open line. Susan has promised us home.
The Standards Political Law, if it's not brought into effect by the next sitting of the Legislative Assembly, whenever that is, I intend to take a motion to put a date there on which it must be done. To amend that, to ask the government to amend that clause and fix a date, right? So that they have chance, but it can't just go on, you know.
Infinitum.
Right.
Right.
And from now on, any law that they bring with that clause, I will be filing an amendment to make it a sunset clause. It has to be implemented by a certain date.
All right. Well, let's pause. When we come back, more talk today.
What do rising geopolitical tensions mean for Cayman? How will the healthcare industry change with the emergence of a genetic revolution? With nationalism growing globally, magnified by Brexit and the U.S. Republican agenda, what are the implications for Cayman? The Cayman Economic Outlook Conference 2019 will answer these and other questions as it explores the theme, Dynamic New World, Braving the Turmoil. Be a part of the discussion on February 28th at the Kimpton Seafire Resort. Reserve your spot today and take advantage of the early bird rates. Sign up at rfceo.ky. rfceo.ky.
Hi, I'm Colin Lumsden, the Georgetown manager and head of the Revitalization Initiative. Our capital city is the heart of business activities in the Cayman Islands, and we would like to bring it back as a center of social activities, with streetside cafes, green spaces, improved roads, and proper walkways for interconnectivity. The new cruise and cargo port is part of the plan and will allow for operators to meet passengers dockside with less lines and overcrowding. Cargo operations will be less intrusive. There will be pedestrianized areas for people to safely walk, shop, and dine. Modernizing the cruise and cargo port is a key element in the efforts to revitalizing our capital city.
Eats Cafe in the Fall Centre on the West Bay Road is a sponsor of Radio Cayman's CI Retro Talk Today special Cayman Islands historical and cultural program series. Eats Cafe, celebrating 30 years of being Cayman's #1 breakfast location, offering you your best choice for a hearty, healthy, delicious breakfast. Eats Cafe, friendly service, pocketbook-friendly prices, and a pleasant surrounding. Eats Cafe, 30 years in Cayman. Be listening for our repeat broadcast of CI Retro Talk Today's Heroes Day Celebrate Cayman special program presentation on Thursday at 7 p.m. on Radio Cayman.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Is this thing working? Give me some sound over here.
Every Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m., Radio Cayman Super Jam Show, the #1 drive time entertainment show for your radio, featuring Will Sinatra.
Now, sound is everything.
Enjoy a mix of pop, hip-hop, reggae, and calypso, and an entertainment trivia section. The Super Jam Show is fueled by the proud sponsorship of the Cayman Islands Football Association. CIFA, building a better future for Cayman football.
If you are seeking a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate degree, the Ministry of Education is now accepting applications for the 2019 Overseas Scholarships. Give yourself the education you deserve and apply today. All scholarship applications must be submitted by January 31st, 2019. For more information on scholarships and the application process, kindly visit education.gov.ky.
But I do have some questions.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks for joining us, and certainly appreciate the opportunity here. Mr. Miller, you share openly, freely. I think what you say, whether it's on the floor of the Parliament or whether it's here on any of the talk shows, the country can decide for itself. So thanks for sharing. In our remaining minutes, Mr. Miller, please share with us anything. And of course, we'll ask some other questions.
I need to make two announcements for Northside. You know, we've had the controversy over the restroom facilities in Rum Point, with some minority of the owners objecting to it and floating this idea about making it a gated community, and they'll have electronic access, and the rest of us, have to be inspected or searched to get in. So I'm having a public meeting on the 31st of January at 8 p.m. in the Cherokee Bank Civic Centre to talk about the roads in the whole Cayman Guy development, and the NRA and myself plan to improve them, and etc., and also to demonstrate that any thoughts of putting up gates or anything like that is totally not happen, right? Second thing I need to talk about is, because of for Cayman, Thanksgiving and the celebration of the coat of arms, the coat of arms people in Cayman put together a Thanksgiving dinner. And what we did in my constituency was we combined students and senior citizens, and it went down really well. The students had a ball, the senior citizens felt good. So I promised to do it once a quarter. So we're having our next senior citizen, young adults and students on February the 23rd, starting at 6 p.m. And H.E. the governor has graciously accepted an invitation for him and his wife to attend, and we're going to play some bingo, so there's going to be some entertainment. But the whole thing is structured around senior citizens communicating to the younger people and getting that dialogue in the community going. And so it should be a fun evening. So I want to make sure that all the Northside people come out, and if you want to come, it can be table catered food and stuff. So, because one of the things that I'm trying to get out of this is teaching the young people how to eat with a knife and fork, and how to sit down by a table. Because I tell people that one of my disappointments, particularly when I came back into politics and started going around visiting people's houses, and I don't mean anything disparagingly about it, but there were no dining room tables. Yeah. And you and I, that's where we learn our etiquette, that's where we learn our manners, that's where we talked about life, etc. So around these dining room tables that we're setting up in the Civic Centre that's part of what we want to talk about. We want to talk about old times. We want to talk about the issues of today. And a lot of it, I'm hoping, will engender confidence in the young adults who are just starting out in life, single mothers and all that kind of stuff, that these senior citizens will say, you can do it. You can do it, Here's why the kind of things you need, but you can do it. Yeah. And get that kind of advice passed on to the young people and the students, having an opportunity to hear about how things were when they were their age and what their school experiences were. Because we take all of the conveniences, I guess is the way I would put it, that we have in our school system today for granted. Yeah. Because we compare it with the private school down the road, right? Mm-hmm. We don't compare it with how the school was 10 years ago or how it was 20 years ago, right? And what the product was and how we did it. And one of the things that I spend a lot of time in my community doing is trying to, what these young people say, big up teachers. Because when I grew up, a teacher was next to the parson in the community, to the preacher. And while they weren't getting a whole pile of big salaries and all that kind of thing, everybody who went fishing or went in the ground would put aside a little bit for teacher. Same way to put aside a little bit for parson, right? And while we have gotten away from that, the compensation hasn't matched and the respect has been deteriorated. So, again, part of this whole exercise is for the young people to have an appreciation for the opportunity that they have at hand and therefore get encouragement to seize the opportunity. So I look forward to it because I enjoy it, and we have a senior citizen, every Tuesday, and I'm in the process now of trying to expand that to, right now it's once a month. Hopefully, starting in February, it's going to be every week. Because that's what the senior citizens tell me they want to do. And it's amazing to see how their face light up when they can come out and have a discussion with their peers. And
But what's challenging, though, is how seemingly difficult it is to make that come to fruition. And we know the benefits of the activity, the independence.
Well, and again, I've had meetings with the various government agencies that tend to do this. And when you sit down on a table, they tell you all kind of stuff until you try to get something done. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing now is we're working with individual restaurants and maitre d's to teach year 5 and year 6. Little things, right? And I'm not saying that they don't get any of this stuff at home, but you can't get too much of manners. I had a meeting in my office this morning, and I referred to the man as Mr. And the man looked at me and said, no, call me my first name. I said, sir, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. My mother beat me because I didn't put handle to people's name. And my children better put handle to your name. So one of the things we need to do is we need to recapture the good things about the good old days, right? Yeah. And modernize them. And so we're trying to provide this. I mean, we have a guy that teaches, that takes time with boys, and we've got someone started with girls. How to clean shoes, how to tie your neckties, how to comb your hair, and you should always have a handkerchief in your pocket in case, your later friend spills something, you might be a napkin around, you can give away your handkerchief. I'm just saying that we need to get back to and this is all about self-respect and respect for others.
Yeah. Mr. Mill, that's one of the things that we appreciate you sharing with us. We get the parliamentary history, we get the insight as well as the recognition. So thank you, sir. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Yep. Thanks for having me, and I apologize for having to leave a half hour earlier, but that's the privileges of being a politician.
The privileges,
you get to deal with all these problems, and I have an appointment in my constituents at 3 o'clock.
Yep.
So I don't want to break no laws, break no speed limits, because I'm not going to the LA. I can break speed limits, I'm going to the LA, but I can't I can't when I'm not. So, and I'm not even driving a Corvette. I'm driving a little Chaptie's truck. Thank you very much.
All right. With that, we'll go to our news. When we come back, more talk today. All right.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
Police are still appealing for help locating a missing man from Georgetown. 72-year-old Errol Keith Whiteley was reported missing to police on Tuesday. He was last seen around Christmas near Brushy Avenue in the Godfrey Nixon area of Georgetown off Godfrey Nixon Way. Mr. Whiteley's whereabouts are still unknown, but police say inquiries now indicate that Mr. Whiteley was last seen about 2 weeks ago near Dump Road in Georgetown. Anyone with information about Mr. Whiteley's whereabouts, you're encouraged to contact the Georgetown Police Station. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. Airbus has warned that it could move wing building out of the UK in the future if there is no Brexit deal. The plane maker's chief executive, Tom Enders, said Airbus will have to make potentially very harmful decisions for the UK in the event of no deal. He said it was a disgrace that firms could still not plan for Brexit. Russia has condemned foreign powers for backing a Venezuelan opposition leader who declared himself interim president, calling it a bid to usurp power. Moscow said that the move violated international law and was a direct path to bloodshed. Juan Guaido declared himself interim leader on Wednesday, a move recognized by the U.S. and several other nations. President Nicolas Maduro, who retains some other nations' support, broke off relations with the U.S. in response. And Jay-Z, Meek Mill and sport and business leaders have pledged $50 million, that's £38 million, to reform the U.S. criminal justice system. The Reform Alliance, which was inspired by Meek Mill's recent stint in prison for a minor probation violation, hopes to free 1 million prisoners in 5 years. The owners of the New England Patriots and Philadelphia 76ers, Robert Kraft and Michael Rubin, are co-founders. Reform says it wants to help people who are trapped in the system. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Roger, Papa Victor, you are airborne at 383, over.
Now, a direct result of the naval base is our aviation history.
Aviation history? 50 years? 100 years? The flying shellfish? What are we doing, Ray?
Dwayne, it's time for Siwa saying again. First one for 2019. You remember the topics we had on naval base, right? Well, this is a result of it. Aviation history.
Fly me to the moon. Let me swing among the stars.
Siwa Saying is a special feature of Talk Today with contributions from the National Museum, a language, history, and culture show on Radio Cayman 89.9 and 93.9 FM. Siwa Saying.
This Friday.
We had airports, we had planes, we had airboats, we had blimps. We even had blimps. Blimps, yeah. Crashes too. Yeah. We had crashes too.
Siwa Saying.
Brought to you by Cayman National Bank, proudly serving the Cayman Islands since 1974. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
Yeah, aviation history. And I don't mean that time that Dwayne jump off the house top with a sheet neither.
Flowers Bottled Water is a sponsor of Radio Cayman's CI Retro Talk Today, special Cayman Islands historical program series. Flowers Bottled Water, the cooler of water. Telephone 949-8688. We invite you to listen to our repeat broadcast of CI Retro Talk Today's Heroes Day Celebrate Cayman special program presentation on Thursday at 7 p.m. on Radio Cayman.
Talk Today. but I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to hear? What is it that you want to say? Well, it's open line for the remainder of our program. Thursdays are usually the days we have members of the opposition. As we just had the wonderful company of the opposition leader joining us. As he said at the outset, he needed to be here until 2 and 2 only because he has matters in his constituency to attend to. Now, as you listen, perhaps you may be of the mindset, well, let me just listen intently on what the parliamentarians are sharing. Maybe you say, how to hear them again? Well, listen, this is a wonderful democracy and it only gets better if we participate. Those that we elect, they're there to serve the interests of the country as a whole. We elect them because we believe, in what they share. They were able to convince us that they're the right people for the job. But they can only be effective if we not just keep them in check, but we ensure that we reach out. If we point fingers and say, well, it's only those people, and we label special interests or the others. No, those things happen. They happen elsewhere, they happen in here. Case in point, someone this morning said to me, why is it that I'm hearing that the planning authorities, the planning ministry, the planning personnel, they gave almost what seemed to an exhaustive list of everything planning, can make a presentation to the Chamber of Commerce, but similar to nobody else. Now the person says, had he not been connected to that, he would probably not have known what is going to be happening relative to the proposals for long-term planning or revisions to our planning legislation. Where are the public meetings? Now, he did quickly share that maybe too much of that is being left to whether it's the politician, the civil servants, the demands on our lives these days that we can't have public meetings. When we do have public meetings, the demands on the lives and expectations of people to serve the interests of their jobs, their families, and other civic engagements, they probably don't have time to attend these meetings. So maybe the people organizing the meetings say, what's the point? I've only got a handful of people. Utilizing technology in order to ensure that people can participate is great. But does that preclude others? He gave us a point, and I have not, I must confess, but he said, could you share? Is there a PowerPoint presentation, a video, or a document of some sort that could be uploaded and disseminated somehow so that at least you can read what is there? Now, he said he's gone online to, and I think the website is planning.gov.ky, looked at the proposal, but he thought, that's a lot of stuff to navigate. And what is it that you're looking at? Everything is sort of, his words, piecemeal. He said it took him a while to actually, where is this survey that they're talking about? And I don't think it's incorrect. I think we have another 2 weeks or so to respond to it. I believe it was going to be a much earlier time, but nonetheless, an important document, an important process, something that perhaps more than just us, he says, who are developers and would-be developers and architects and engineers and contractors and the like. If we're going to have 50-story buildings or another 5 stories to the ones we have, are we going to have development of this kind and that kind? Are we going to be looking at other things that concern us because planning or otherwise, those are issues that impact us. I appreciate some of the things he shared. I believe that in his, as he shared, his growing frustration at the lack of input and participation by the public, the seemingly growing, in his mind, unwillingness by some, what they call them autocrats, technocrats, or as he phrased it, the fiefdoms that are being created, he says, to disseminate information. But if you're not willing to ask for something, if you're not willing to embrace something that's being offered, maybe you get what you deserve. Now, I certainly appreciated him sharing very candidly the way he did. How do you feel about this whole issue? Are there other things that are important to you? Are you so overwhelmed with what's going on that you really don't have time to think about anything else? Hey, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. The phone lines are open. If you want to share your thought, go right ahead. If you choose to do so via our WhatsApp, well, 925-3261. And we have an email. It actually works sometimes. Takes a while to get to us, but boy, eventually it comes through, I think. Talk today at candw.ca. KY. Whatever means that you so choose, well, go right ahead. One or two of you have another avenue to share things, well, we get to those as well. And then, of course, the comments that come through, off air, as we call it, some of those are not just only for edification. They certainly allow us to explore and sometimes understand. Now, on the vein and sort of, not to pick on planning in any which way, but it is something that we have had an incredible amount of commentary. Give you two things. One, you're probably aware of this whole issue of, coastal works applications and the like, and the notion that, yes, there is a proposal to excavate, 4 acres of turtle grass, and part of a, potentially, possibly a part of a longer-term plan development in the Barkas area. One individual said, well, living in an area where there's a lot of residential and tourism hotel sort of development. Now, should notification be to just the adjoining landowners? Should it be a wider thing similar to coastal works applications? She was of the view that if we're looking at building another hotel, whether it's 5 stories or 10 stories, whether it's a massive, condominium and mixed-use development, should the wider public, at the very least, be aware of it? Whether they can object, but at the very least be aware. She gave us an example. You have a property, it's, zone, let's just use the example she gave, hotel tourism. That would-be developer comes along, whether it's the landowner or otherwise, and says, we're going to build a hotel, this is the size, this is the design, this is this, that. Well, should you be able to at least say, well, I don't know, that looks kind of, maybe in your view, not that attractive, not, what is the phrase, aesthetically pleasing. Or you say, well, if this development goes in here, what will that do for the surrounding area? Will property values be positively or negatively affected? Will the people, if it's a 10-story building, for argument's sake, be literally looked down upon in their single-story or 2-story or 3-story or even, 4 or 5-story buildings? Because you're 10 stories up, can you literally look down? Will your privacy be affected? Will your, light, be blocked? Will your view that you now enjoy be impeded? Are those things to be considered? What about the amount of people coming and going? Not just the workers, but the owners or, guests of the hotel. How would that increased traffic congestion be managed? Will there now be more demands by government to widen roads, to build new roads? And that ensuing cost is a cost to the country, the taxpayer. So you're not benefiting directly, perhaps not even indirectly from it, but you're being asked to foot the bill to provide infrastructure, more sewage and other things. Her view is that as we're looking long term, and if we're reviewing our planning or development plan or national development plan or other things, are we considering how these seemingly, individual piecemeal developments going to impact the overall view of the country, the cost, maintenance, expectation, and sort of, other things that are not necessarily being considered. Seemingly, the increase in population that would come as a result of those who may take up residence in these new buildings or may be asked to be employed in these new buildings, whether they're here for 5 years or 50. What is the long-term impact, again, positive or negative? And these are some of the things that some of you have shared, and I thought it's good to see that we're thinking about it, maybe having discussions amongst our colleagues and our families. But as the lady shared, to what extent are we having these discussions publicly? Are we writing letters to the media? Are we calling and questioning the politicians and the planners and the other public officials? Are we ensuring that we are participating when there is the opportunity to review legislation, to comment on policy? And as she, sort of closed by saying, are those opportunities being offered sufficiently in a timely manner? Is feedback, when received, being considered? Well, some of us would overwhelmingly say, yep, definitely, no problem. That's exactly how it is. Others would say, well, it doesn't really make any sense because it's, going to happen the way it's going to happen and you're not going to have any say in it. Well, your thoughts. 8949-8037. Toll free with the compliments of Flow at 1-800-534-8255. I'm told that I would dial as 1-800-534-TALK. And if you want to WhatsApp, 925-3261. With a final break coming up when we come back. Certainly want you to be a part of a discussion. Please remember to come tomorrow. Of course, you have For the Record with Mr. Hart, and you have all the wonderful programming in the morning. But in the Talk Today slot, we're going to have a wonderful COR saying, and man, if you want to see the work that Ray has done continually, and we're looking forward to our honored guest to join us as we look at aviation history. Some of us like planes because, boy, we remember the days in the classrooms when we were running around the school hall going, woo! I can see Susan now pretending to fly her paper plane, down the hall and get in trouble in the class. Can you imagine that, Susan? Nah, she wouldn't do that kind of thing. Maybe she would. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But when we come back, what's on your mind and what do you want to share with us? Let's hear from you. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From happy beginnings to happy ever after.
Brit K protects your lifestyle with the best insurance cover at the best possible price.
Health insurance with far-reaching benefits.
95% of claims settled in 5 days.
Low-cost life insurance.
And investments.
Security in retirement.
With a custodian pension plan.
For happy beginnings and a happy ever after.
Visit BritK.ky or call 949-8699.
Brit K, where people come first.
National Heroes Day is a time to celebrate our history, heritage, and be inspired for the future.
This year, we are honoring the people who pioneered the establishment of our first national symbol, the coat of arms, celebrating our journey to modern-day Cayman, and recognizing organizations who served our community for over 50 years.
The ceremony begins at 9 a.m. on National Heroes Day, Monday, January 28th, at Hero Square in Georgetown, with live entertainment and refreshments following the celebrations.
For more information, contact National Events at gov.ky or call 244-3612.
This National Heroes Day, Monday, January 28th.
Show your national pride
and celebrate Cayman
as we pay tribute to our national heroes.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
Tune in to the Super Jam Show Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. as Radio Cayman will bring you live coverage of the 2019 Lounge of the Lions Club of Grand Cayman Binzarama fundraiser. It's happening live from Mango Tree. Also, find out how you can enter into the drawing for CI $250.
Headlines.
With the latest headlines.
Headlines.
All the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars.
Local, regional, international.
Headlines.
Turning to international news. Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. Radio Cayman News.
Headlines.
Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Let's go to our phones. It's open line. Good afternoon. You're on Talk Today.
Hello. Good afternoon, Wayne.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I be fine, I be fine.
You be fine.
And I'm hoping you're doing well too, Senor.
Thank God, sir. I'm very blessed indeed.
The subject you're talking about there a while ago to do with the development plan and that, right?
Yes, sir.
I somehow find it disingenuous of government, given the fact that a lot of the questions that are asked in this questionnaire during the Vision 2008 process, in which over 3,000 Caymanians and residents took part in, and was passed unanimously and then shelved by government. And then, that was 10 years previously. And then in 2001, the Honorable Kurt Tibbetts, the Minister of Planning during that period, he started in December of 2000 a process to draft the first rail development plan for the Cayman Islands, because the document they have now that was from 1977 really, and supposed to be revised every 5 years, that isn't even a zoning plan, because that allows quarries to be put in the middle of residential districts. And when you see that kind of nonsense going on, you realize you're in trouble. And when he tried to do that, he did a process with 5 people in government, with a long-range planning unit of government. They went from district to district, island to island, recorded, I think it's over 2,500 views and comments and meetings with people during the year. And then they came up, putting all that together, the input from people, and they came out with a plan, and that plan was then ready when the coup occurred on November the 8th, 2001, when he was overthrown and kicked out of EXCO. And, you know, the people that came in afterwards, we all know who came in after 2001, in November the 8th, 2001. Those people shelved that development plan. Now, that was a complete development plan that was there. Now, they're giving you the impression that this thing that they're doing will be the drafting of the first development plan for Cayman. You already have a draft. And by the way, we had a draft in 1975 as well, which developers were able to get control of and throw out. So I will not be one of the ones commenting on this. I gave all my comments in 2001. They have it on file. And if they were halfway genuine with really wanting to hear from the people, they would take all of the information that was there in 2001 and put that up on the website so people can read, so you can compare with what they're asking. Do people feel the same way that they felt back then? And based on the comments on the radio and the talk shows and on Cayman News Service, because the Compass doesn't, people hardly ever comment on that much anymore. I find that a lot of the problems, and even back to Vision 2008, it's the same problems that people identified, and they're asking the same question over and over. Like, you don't have to ask the question, if you go out in the rain and you have no raincoat over your head, will your head get wet? You don't need to keep asking that same question over and over and over. People know the answer. And this is what government is doing, when basically we know that they have their own idea of what they want it to be. They don't want to talk to the people because the government is afraid of the people, won't come out. And that's why I say it's disingenuous with the whole exercise, with what they're doing.
Well, I'll share with you, and hopefully it's not taken out of context or held against me, but you have to be prepared to stand behind your convictions. Because this is only 3 weeks into the new year, as it were, and there have been so many in the public that have shared comments with me relative to planning and the future of Cayman and the like. I went ahead after, I don't want to say being chastised, but it felt like it to an extent, relative to planning. Here's a survey, you're a citizen, a voter, did you even look at it? Have you completed it? So I went and I did it in my private capacity as me, and it asks for your name, so I put it. They're just my comments. How they'll be reviewed or whether they'll be considered, isn't it the thing? That there's an active opportunity to participate. And I've gone through it. Some of the comments that some people have shared, I could understand their thought. I think you've highlighted some of them now relative to the questions that have been asked. But as I listen to it and as I reflect on what I believe I remember what was asked and what I shared, how much of the process is going to drive us not just 5 years but 50 years?
Yes, that's very true. And also, you see, without a country policy plan, like was envisaged with Vision 2008, are we planning for 100,000? And is it really going to double the population Cayman has since 1970? Every 18 years, it doubles. So they're going to take it to 100,000 as quickly as possible. And then 18, 20 years from then, 200,000 people?
Well, this is something that...
This is the policies of our government.
Yeah.
The present set that we have in there, they've stated it.
I want to ask you something, and only hesitant because perhaps we, had a chance to flesh it properly. But in this recent sort of series of discussions with different people, not the same people, not in the same setting, but almost the same storyline, as it were. I'm reminded that in the early 90s, from what I was told, there was this discussion, whether amongst the government, whether that's the elected or appointed government or the private sector, but within the community, this notion that we need to move our population to, at that time, 100,000 people. That was a critical mass for it to be a sustainable population for taxable base and the like. I'm told by some individuals now that if we were to do a census now, that our population wouldn't be 65,000, it would be closer to 100,000. I'm not saying that to scare people or to, what's the word they use, to try to create fodder and the like. But if that's the case, have we already sort of behind the 8 ball?
Well, I mean, I would hope that the census and the information from the statistics unit and records could not be that off. That they say it's 60 out of one mouth, one side of their mouth, and the other side of their mouth, they're saying that it's 100,000 already. Now, is that what you just saying?
I'm not saying that the statistics office is saying that. There are no public pronouncements and the like. There is a census scheduled for next year, November, right? There is a year prior to that, in this year, November, a test, sort of like a dry run of a defined sample to say, these are some of the questions that will be asked. This is, what we're going to expect by people who seemingly would otherwise be considered to be credible and respectful and respectable and all the attributes that we would ascribe to them, are of the view that our population, when the census was done, 10, 11, 9 years, whatever was ago, in 1999, that number now, 10 years later, 20 years later, we're now moving from the 99 census of just under 40,000 to the one, since then, that put us to 60-odd thousand. That today, we're looking at closer to 100,000. So that would be speaking to your notion of doubling the population every 18 years, right? So from 40 to 80, but in fact it's more than double in less than 20 years.
Yeah, well, it isn't my notion. This is a report.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
The Pedley report that was produced some years ago, right? It's not my numbers. I'm nothing. And they wonder why they need more courtrooms, more judges, more prisons, when you've ruined the country, the culture in a country. We're not really a country, in the island. And they have ruined it. And they're causing all the social problems. Needs assessment unit, the amount of money they're paying out each month is growing faster than the economy. Where are the taxes coming from?
But
they talk about, you were asking the question about where is the money coming from sewage and that. When you have what has been given away by politicians in the previous government to Mr. Dart's group of companies, they're not paying their way for development.
But it's even, I mean, if we...
And all the duties and the things. We said that we were a consumer-based economy.
Mm-hmm. No.
But now all these developments going up, they all got the duty-free this. They don't pay the planning fee. They don't pay this. They don't pay... You know, so it's only the small little people that don't have the lobby power, that didn't give the politicians a bunch of money during election time, that we have it now where we're not collecting the money from development that we used to collect, like when Butler did their developments originally, when they were building the condos on the West Bay Road.
Well, if we go back to the Hansards and the 1984 sort of meeting after the elections, you know, the removal of that, can we call it that tax? Was it 4% on the sale of condos? That was supposed to for housing? Something that you were...
Even now, they're still extending the duty-free on import duties.
Mm-hmm.
When building boom that they admit is in place, now is the time to try and collect some of the money that they've been giving away and that development has not been paying its way.
Mm.
But the developers control the government. They control the politicians.
But then, where are we, the electorate, you know, in this whole process, trying to be aware, trying to ensure there's a level of accountability and at the very least some, you know, semblance of dissemination of information in a timely manner?
Yeah, well, they're accepting what's happening because different groups are paid off in different ways and given this and given that, just enough to keep them quiet and ignorant and stupid. And that's the little payouts that people are getting, they're accepting instead of rising up. But it can only last for so long. And then you wonder where the violence comes from. And just keep looking for the newspaper. We now have pages and pages of security companies. You're going to have pages and pages of burglar bar building companies for people going to have it over their windows.
I pray that, you know, we get a handle on it, because I think you have been, you know, very, very, you know, almost some would say, you know, pressing it with your thoughts. So let's see what we can do. Hey, thank you very much, sir, for sharing. Huh?
God bless you, sir.
Amen. God bless you to you as well.
Keep on discussing and bringing the subjects out that you do.
Well, I thank you, sir, but I can only do that because people have so far shared with me. I'm hopeful that I've been not only cognizant of what they shared, but I've shared it respectfully and objectively and partially, but also in a way that does not betray confidences. And if people's conscience have been pricked, it's because, you know, they're good people and they realize sometimes, you know, we just need to lace our shoes a little bit tighter. Thank you, sir. Tomorrow, continue to learn and be engaged as you join Mr. Art for the record in the morning. Come back and laugh with us, but learn with us as we do our monthly, see what I'm saying. So much that this country has to offer. It is a truly remarkable place. It has an incredible history. There is a people that has a resolve and a resilience that you don't truly appreciate, but more importantly, you don't even know about. And as we learn, whether you've been here like some of us for generation after generation or you've only recent, let's involve and include you. Let's share and celebrate, and let's come to have a strong sense of identity and pride in our country. And tomorrow, as we look at aviation history, you're going to be, you know, very pleased to see our honored guest. We do a lot to build our shows around the topic and the individual. This contribution is paramount. Our friends at the National Archive, that's why we send Ray, because he's charming and has such a pleasing personality that, you know, they love him access. So we thank them for letting us in there. But we know that they're the keepers of, you know, those wonderful historical documents. So I appreciate it. Now tomorrow, until then, be blessed.
my ground so clean.
The heart and soul of the Cayman people. Thank you for keeping the culture alive.
Spread the news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.